So with all of the character guides being done, I figured this would be a good time to talk about the best party setups in Xenoblade Definitive Edition. Pretty much every character has potential to be good in a vacuum based on their own strengths, but how well can they synergize and work with a team, and what is typically the best party for all of the challenges that the game will throw your way? In this video, I want to briefly discuss what aspects make a team good or bad, and take a look at 2 or 3 of the best teams and discuss what makes them so good. As always, there will be spoilers on the 7th party member in this video, so please watch at your own risk. And if you enjoy my content and all things Xenoblade related, make sure to subscribe to the channel because it really does help me out so much. So one of the things you will quickly learn about this game is that the AI does some weird things at times. Sometimes you might need your AI Shulk to use Monado Armor or Monado Purge to save you from a dangerous enemy and he'll just launch a Monado Buster instead. Perhaps you've seen AI Sharla overheat herself. Maybe you've noticed how awful the Melia AI can be when it's using its elementals. All of these can be contributing factors to whether or not a character can be considered good in a team. It's not enough to just be good in a vacuum when controlled by the player. They have to be able to consistently offer something if the AI is using them. For instance, Dunban's AI is really good about using Peerless at the start of battles if you focus attacks to give a large strength buff to the entire party, and is very good about using his art combos properly such as Gale Slash and Worldly Slash for the defense and strength drop on an enemy. Ricky's AI throughout the game heals you when you need it, and can easily apply all his debuffs and damage over time effects without cause for concern. It is for this reason when discussing the best team options, you have to take into account AI behavior. Someone like Melia can only really make a great lead character for an ether-based team, but having her on AI is almost never going to be good in any situation. In addition to AI behavior, you need to consider chain attack usefulness. Chain attacks are one of the most important features of combat and the main way to kill enemies through a variety of methods later on into the game. Someone like Sharla, who has 1 red art, 2 purple arts, and a talent art that cannot even be used in a pretty bad party member for any kind of chain attack. In addition, her AI isn't super amazing in general, and as such, Sharla is a pretty mediocre at best character to use in any kind of party setup. Every other party member pretty much has a talent art that can be used in chain attacks, which is very helpful, and much more art variety also. The final consideration you have to make is consider how well character art synergize with other characters. I know that seems pretty basic, but there is still some truth to that. If I have Dunban running Peerless to buff everyone's strength, then I should probably use characters that take advantage of strength. If I plan to use a lot of red arts and a chain attack for damage, I should likely have red arts equipped on my characters. If I want to topple luck, I should have a party that has a lot of topple arts. If I'm focused on ether damage, I want to find ways to amplify those effects further. All of this is important to keep in mind, and why a party such as Shulk, Melia, and Sharla, which has characters that can be pretty good in a vacuum, would be an absolutely terrible choice for a party. So with all that being said, there's pretty much 2 main types of parties in this game, with some subsets and variations. The physical party and the ether party. The physical party is pretty much any combination of Shulk, Rein, Dunban, and Fiora. Typically, you'd use Shulk lead for the safest and most consistent results, but there's benefits to using each character in the lead slot. The ether party pretty much always has Melia in the lead slot, and then has Ricky and some tankier character like Dunban and Rein to fill the last slot usually. Ricky usually isn't the best character to personally control for a more balanced damage team, but it can be good if you're going for safety. It's hard to really recommend controlling Sharla at all, or using her in any team, so rest in peace Sharla. I'll go more into that when ranking the party members in a different video. So let's get into talking about the physical party and what makes it such a strong team option. So one of the really good things the physical party has going for it are the gems that they can stack up with each other to really synergize well with each other. So physical defense down is a perfect example of this. Every time any character that has this equipped auto attacks, they have a 30% chance of lowering enemy physical defense by 25%. Now this is particularly useful because this effect can stack if someone else has the gem, and it can also stack with other physical defense down things such as Worldly Slash or Slit Edge. Additionally, Topple Plus is great because every single one of these characters has a really nice topple art that can be used in chain attacks, and just in general to keep enemies unable to move for a very long period of time, and that's one of the best aspects of the physical party. Additionally, since they have haste with the glory gauntlets that you should pretty much have equipped on all of them, they'll also be able to auto-attack pretty consistently, and that'll just allow you to get even more benefit out of potentially applying the physical defense down debuff. Now, like I said, you can pretty much equip this kind of stuff on anyone. I don't have physical defense down on Fiora because I've already got enough with Shulk and Dunban. But you can just kind of see how they're going to have like pretty similar things throughout the party that can synergize pretty well with each other throughout the any fights you want to do. As far as skill links, I've pretty much talked about this in every single video, but Chain of Friendship is an absolutely amazing skill just to give to everyone you can, just because it's very useful for continuing chain attacks, which are very important for having a very good party. Ryan has a similar skill that's a little bit less powerful, only 5%, but it's still worth linking for the maximum amount of chain attack duration possible. Another really good skill is Glorious Future. This is great to link to certain characters that can take a lot of advantage out of having their talent art up as much as possible, especially Dunban and Melia, who benefit greatly from having their talent art available. And other really good skills, Explosion of Energy. This also helps if you're using talent arts, because having maximum tension means you get chain attacks up more often because of the extra crit rate, and you also just do more damage in chain attacks and in general, so it's really, really nice to have. So these are probably the skills I would focus on the most as far as linking and everything like that. There's a bunch of other things you can do, and you can kind of see what all is going to synergize well with each other. Haste buffs, double attack for all the characters that want to auto-attack a lot. You know, just simple things like that as I discussed in all my character guides. So in order to showcase how effective this team can be in pretty much any scenario, I wanted to use a consistent enemy and also have him be a pretty strong enemy, so I chose Blizzard Belgasus as the second strongest enemy in the game. The reason I didn't choose Odyssey is because getting Odyssey to spawn is a pain since you need very specific weather, and he still only has a 30% chance on top of that if you've already defeated him. So the good thing about controlling Shulk is that you'll have full control of the Monado art, so you'll never have to worry about that. So no AI Shulk using Buster when he doesn't need to or anything like that. You can use armor yourself, so that really broken art has basically 100% uptime to keep your entire team safe. You don't have to worry about Shulk's AI killing himself with Battle Soul. And you get all the benefits of using your positional effects properly should you choose. Additionally, with stuff like Slit Edge, Worldly Slash, and Physical Defense down gems, you can get a lot of physical defense reduction on an enemy like this, which is going to help the entire rest of the party too. The red arts and talent arts are really all you need to kill any enemy in the game as long as you have enough power going for you and enough physical damage reduction. And this is kind of just a great way to show it off. Blizzard Belgasus had most of his health left, and you're going to see after 7 art chain attack, we'll be able to just completely wipe him out. You're seeing Blossom Dance here just do a pretty massive amount of damage. The last hit, even without critting, did 90,000. Sword Drive did 85,000 there. I don't think AI Ryan used Berserker, which also just kind of shows you that the AI is not always the most reliable on that front either. But you can still clearly see just how fast the physical party can just kind of nuke some UMs. Basically, you can get the party meter up pretty fast if you don't already have it up, thanks to Ricky's Happy Happy. And the physical arts can pretty much just destroy any enemy in a chain attack with no need for necessarily trying to topple lock them or anything like that. That is just an extra benefit of this party that I will also briefly show off. I already have an entire video devoted to that, so that's no reason for me to really worry about that too much. But pretty much any of these characters you control, you can pretty much have very similar results regardless. I can pretty much showcase the same thing here with the Dunban control some physical defense down myself with Worldly Slash and my auto attacks. And that once again allows you to have some pretty powerful chain attacks. Now you'll see AI Shulk doesn't have his talent art up, which is a little bit unfortunate. But fortunately we have enough damage that we don't necessarily need to worry about that all that much. We can get a max backslash, even not from the side, it does a lot of damage. The max sword drive does 87,000, which isn't too bad. And of course Dunban's Blossom Dance is just an extremely high powerful art, and it's going to be able to give us all the rest of the damage we need here to actually kill him. Over 100,000 on the last hit. But maybe at this point I'm just showing off how powerful Blossom Dance is so you can stack up enough physical defense down. Regardless still though, pretty much all of these characters have some pretty high damage. And all of their AI is decent enough. Sometimes Ryan has trouble using Berserker and Magnum Charge properly. And of course Shulk's AI is easily the worst of all these because he's not really good at using Monado arts. But Dunban and Fiora are pretty much just going to be able to do the things they need to do at all times. Which is of course very helpful to the team composition and party. Now, Dunban and Ryan's AI are really good about toppling enemies whenever they have the ability to, so that is something to keep in mind as well. I know so far I've kind of just only showed off the damage they can do just because I wanted to show it off for consistency's sake. It is a little bit better to to control Dunban and Shulk in cases like this. You'll see Blossom Dance does a lot less damage here. And that's just typically because they have easier ways to apply physical defense down, which helps out the entire party more. And once again, the AI is not always the best about doing that properly because AI Shulk's not really that great about using Slit Edge in the right locations at the very least. And then we get to Fiora. I already kind of showed off her strength and chain attacks earlier, but I just wanted to continue showing it off here. There's not much physical defense stacked down on this dude in this chain attack either, but you'll still be able to see just how powerful the damage can get. And of course, it could be even more powerful in a more optimized environment here. Regardless, this is just showing off kind of the consistency of a physical party, whereas even if you aren't able to instantly kill the enemy, you can already see the party meter's already almost charged up anyway. And kind of the last thing they're really good about doing, which I've already kind of explained in a different video, is topple locking. Pretty much every member of the physical party has a really nice topple art. Shulk has Monado Cyclone, Fiora has Final Cross, Dunban has Still Strike, and Ryan has Wild Down. Pretty much any enemy can be broken in a chain attack no matter what, unless they're completely immune to break. And this means with Topple plus gems and this ability to use a bunch of chain attacks with party meter gain with someone like Fiora and Dunban who have high gain and Shulk, you can pretty much keep any enemy in the game toppled permanently, even some of the most powerful super bosses in the game. And this is just a good and consistent method for pretty much beating any enemy. Even if you don't always have the most damage, just being able to keep an enemy in a state of being unable to attack you forever is a great way to just destroy pretty much any enemy the game has to offer. The Ether Party is not the best at doing something like this, so that makes it a little more limited unless you're just going for maximum melee damage over time damage. Regardless, it's pretty easy to see that this physical party pretty much always works well together, just because they can increase each other's damage pretty significantly by lowering physical defense, and if that's not enough, they have topple-based strategies. And as has already been said many times, you can control pretty much anyone you want to, but for the best results, controlling Shulk is likely the way to go, for the most consistency with being able to use Monado arts properly. As far as deciding which other party members to use, that really just depends on the situation. I would say Dunban is probably the only party member that's just really good no matter what, just because he has access to Peerless, which buffs everyone's strength. Shulk is great for his Monado arts, but the best exclusive topple party doesn't even use Shulk, it uses the other three members that have access to more powerful topple arts at all times. Ryan is good for his pure raw damage, but he is better player control for that aspect, and Fiora is amazing for party meter. Regardless, pretty much any combination of these are going to serve you just fine. So let's talk about Ether Party for a little bit here. So the Ether Party takes advantage of Ricky and Melia's damage over time effects more than anything else. Having Ether defense down is very, very powerful for this, so using Burst End's really good on Melia as well. Typically, this party is going to be a lot more limited and a lot less tanky as well. That can be a good thing if you're trying to end fights as fast as possible, because you'll probably get visions as soon as the battle starts, just because if it targets Melia, she's probably going to die from the first art, which allows you to instantly get a bunch of changed visions and get everyone to max tension pretty much as soon as possible. And it also allows Melia to get her glorious future stock on her elementals, so those will always do double damage. Additionally, since you'll be using purple arts and chain attacks, making sure to have those equipped on your party members. Dunban has Tempest Kicks, so this can be very helpful, along with being a pretty tanky party member that can soak up a lot of hits in most situations. Melia's Talon Art can count as anything though, so that's very nice, and Talon Arts always count as anything, so that's why I'm going to be using Blossom Dance here as well. Since we're not spec'd for doing as much physical damage as possible, it's going to do a lot less damage than it did in other team setups, but it does allow us to continue the chain attack and get our damage over time effects off on Melia and Ricky. Now this party doesn't have quite the defenses, it doesn't have a reliable way to topple enemies. It usually relies on being able to stay safe after the chain attacks end, even if a bunch of damage over time is ticking. So it's definitely very valuable to have Reflection for an AoE move like Mountain Stop here, for instance. This can be a very fun party to use for as far as pure damage. It's probably still never going to beat just the absolute efficiency of a physical party, but you can see all the damage over time number just kind of bleeding his health bar pretty fast here. You will have to worry about maybe your characters dying like they did here if they don't have Reflection on them, but you can see the damage over time effect is still going to kill him before Melia has to worry herself. And she can just dequip her weapon, which is pretty fun. Overall, I think the physical party is going to be much better than using Melia, even if Melia can still be a very great and powerful character overall. Damage over time is perfectly viable as a strategy. Now, one of the things you are seeing with this is that Dunban ends up being a pretty good party member for pretty much everyone, just because he's just very useful in pretty much any scenario because of the role he offers to a team. Additionally, one benefit about using Melia in the lead slot is that she can use her Talon Art 3 times in chain attacks if you have it set it up properly. This allows her to combo with any kind of chain attack setup, which actually makes her a pretty good party member as long as she is the one in the lead slot. I've already talked about how kind of bad her AI is, but as far as someone you are personally controlling, she ends up being a really, really nice option. She even has Spear Break if you absolutely need a red art, and she has Starlight Kick if you absolutely need a green art. This can make her very good in a lot of chain attacks, even if she is not going to be the absolute focus of the party with her ether damage. Her buff she can provide to allies can be useful if you're just trying to be safe. If someone has a lot of physical attack, you can just stack up 3 Summon Earths and just help them survive that. Typically, Monado armor is going to be useful for something like this, but using Melia can still work. All in all, there's a lot of really good team setups in this game that you can run. Running some variation of the physical party is typically going to be best most of the time if you ask me. There's just too many things about physical damage that can synergize well with each other, like lowering physical defense and just doing a lot of damage in chain attacks along with topple locking. And overall, it's that consistency and ability to always get some really strong damage out of it against any enemy that this game has to offer that makes it a pretty superior option. It's also worth noting that some characters like Ryan and Dunban have some pretty powerful area of effect arts which are going to be more useful than some of the other characters. Regardless, I think that about covers the basic of party building and what kind of constitutes as one of the best parties in this game. I hope it was a lot more useful than my really bad 6-minute video on parties in Xenoblade 2. AI behavior, chain attack synergy, art synergy, all that stuff is going to be important to consider. Physical Party is great at all of this stuff because pretty much all their AI is never going to be too detrimental to fighting strategies. Shulk control is great for all sorts of things and probably going to be what constitutes one of the best party members. I'd say Shulk lead along with Dunban, and either Fiora or Ryan is the best party. Fiora is going to be better if you want to have more party meter and use chain attacks as much as possible, and Ryan is going to be better if you want to go for as much damage as possible. And as far as the best party for just maximum damage against non-super boss type enemies that are a little bit easier to take down, it's probably going to be Ryan in the lead with Shulk and Dunban as party members. Being able to control Ryan's Berserker and Sword Drive and just using Magnum Charge efficiently does allow him to do quite a bit of damage. And that is also pretty much the best method for a lot of the challenge mode missions. Or time attack, since it's barely a challenge. Regardless, I think that about covers it for me. Enjoy watching this really funny vision glitch I got that kind of soft-locked my game. I'll be releasing some videos covering the time attack mode in more detail, as well as ranking the party members as far as their general strengths overall pretty soon. If you enjoyed this guide and are looking forward to future content on the entire Xeno series as well as this game, please be sure to like the video, comment, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Twitch, all that kind of weird chilling stuff I can do. It all helps out, and I greatly appreciate all of it. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and have a wonderful day.